All right. Well, super, super honored that you have joined us this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. My name's Michelle. I'm joining from Treaty 6, Amiskwichiwaskagan, Edmonton. It is a gorgeous day. I believe the hot weather is back for a couple of days anyways. So we just want to give thanks to Creator for this gift of another day, to be able to walk underneath the sun, to walk in connection to earth, to Mother Earth. We give thanks for all the gifts that the Creator has given to us today. So welcome, welcome. We're honored you're joining us on this beautiful virtual community. You're joining Innovate BC. Today's webinar is Indigenous Clean Energy and Indigenous Peoples as the country's strongest clean energy community. So it's a really good topic today, really good conversation happening. So we would love to hear your story, your experience, your questions. There will be room at the end of today's presentation. Feel free also to use the chat box throughout, and I will make sure to note your comments or any questions along the way. So we're going to learn and hear from the ladies at Indigenous Clean Energy, so ICE. It's a social enterprise. It's a pan-Canadian not-for-profit platform which advances Indigenous inclusion in Canada's energy futures economy through Indigenous leadership and broad-based collaboration with energy companies, utilities, governments, development firms, clean tech innovators, academic sector, and capital markets. So you're joining us to hear what ICE can do for you to advance a clean energy future led by Indigenous communities, and hear about some of the success stories. I love hearing success stories. They're so inspiring. From the 2020 catalysts from BC. So today's guests are Terry Lynn Morrison. She's a proud First Nations Mi'kmaq woman from Listigouche. I feel like I didn't say that properly, in the province of Quebec, where she was born and raised. Terry Lynn brings many qualities to her work, including her understandings of First Nation realities and passion for Indigenous involvement in a just transition. So in 2019, July, so 2 years ago, Terry Lynn joined the ICE team as the Director of Communications and Strategic Partnerships. Her role focuses on building relationships with key partners to help amplify the impact of Indigenous clean energy in Canada. She began her work in 2014 when she became the project director for 150 MW wind farm that was owned and developed with the 3 Mi'kmaq communities and their partner Energetics Renewable Energy from Quebec. This project was recognized by the Quebec wind industry, where it received Excellence in Human Resources Award. And Terry Lynn was recognized as the rising star for her contribution in fostering social acceptability for the project, which is amazing. Congratulations on that. And Aubrey Ann is joining us. She's a proud First Nations and Métis woman from Canoe Lake Cree First Nation on Treaty 10 territory, with paternal roots to Little Pine First Nation on Treaty 6 territory. She's a full-time student at the University of Saskatchewan, pursuing her Bachelor of Commerce in Finance and a Global Business Stream certificate. So she's an advocate for Indigenous youth and displays this work in her positions as the co-founder of Indigenous Business Student Society and as the National Student Director with Can Do. So she has a role with the ICE partnerships as a coordinator for Indigenous Clean Energy. As she's a full-time student, she's just a powerhouse. So we are in good hands this afternoon with these two strong women, and we welcome you to this virtual platform to share your knowledge, share your passion. I think that this is a very important and timely topic. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm happy to be here. Terry, if you want to start the introduction, I can get sharing our PowerPoint.
Sure. Thank you so much for the intro, Michelle. Not much left to say after that. You did do a good job saying Listigut. So, Welly Melui Ogwedge, Mstitwan, Ninda Louise and Terry Lynn Morrison. I am on my way back to my home territory right now. So almost almost at the tip of that, so I'm getting really excited and really pumped, and I'm happy to be here to share with you guys this afternoon about the work that we're doing at Indigenous Clean Energy and the experiences that we've had working with Catalyst from British Columbia. I see that there's some of you in the chat that will certainly be recognizing some faces in the presentation later on, so looking forward to that. So we'll get into the presentation. I'm going to flip it over to Aubrianne.
Amazing. Yeah, like Terry said, we're so excited to be here. I am a full-time student, but for the last year, I've been involved with Indigenous Clean Energy in both events and now partnerships. And so I'm really excited to get to show everyone the passion that we have for ICE and hopefully get everyone involved and active in this clean energy community. So first here, I kind of want to touch on what Indigenous Clean Energy does. If you haven't heard of ICE before, you can see here that we root everything we do in Indigenous culture. And so as you can see here, we have our medicine wheel of our programming. And so you can see at the core of everything is our ICE community. And we look for capacity, cooperation, culture, and collaboration. Those are very important to us. And it's what we do in everything. As you see, we go out, it kind of talks about our different programmings, touching on them now. It's the ICE Gathering, our 2020 Catalyst program, our ICE Network, Bringing It Home, ICE Governance and Leadership, Global Hub, and what's missing here is actually Generation Power, which is our newest addition to our programs, which I'll touch on later as well. But as you can see, everything is grounded in who we are as a people, and we try to integrate culture in everything that we do by whether that be in our building capacity, fostering cooperation, or facilitating collaboration. Looking next at exactly who we are and what we do. We are a social enterprise. We're independent, Indigenous governed nonprofit, and we work to advance Indigenous and broader sustainable prosperity by supporting First Nations, Métis, and Inuit clean energy participation in every region of Canada. So you can find those, whether that means through our Bringing It Home or our 2020 Catalyst program, everything we do is fostered and centered in advancing Indigenous peoples in the transition to a clean energy future. Here, I do just want to show a little video about our 2020 Catalyst program. It is award-winning. It's kind of where I started, and that's why it's so inspiring to get to see how far it's come and get that inspiration from what you can hear these catalysts say. And so I'm just going to show everyone a short video. If you happen to not be able to hear it, please write in the chat and let me know.
I was fortunate to be a part of the 2020 Catalyst program, and for me that program really opened doors.
Because when I was hired on, the only thing that I knew in this world about clean energy is what I saw on TV or on Facebook.
But I didn't know other people were doing the things that I was looking at.
I didn't know about any of this stuff until I went to the Catalyst program.
When I got hired on, that's what I was thinking, okay, well, how am I going to do it?
Everything's new.
So the 2020 Catalyst program is an incredibly powerful program. It has produced successes all over the country. They are leaders in their community about affecting change, working to clean energy, combating climate change.
When I got into that clean energy project, I was nervous, but once I started meeting these people from across Canada, First Nation, Inuit, Métis, I got excited. Now I'm not alone.
We know many of you have traveled here from a long way.
Altogether, it's just an amazing program to help build relationships, connections, both to share what we've learned and learn from other people along the way.
60 of us with some mentors were working together and learning and sharing.
Help First Nation communities come together so that we can learn from each other. Help on the project management side, on understanding about what clean energy is, how to go about producing it, and bringing people outside of their communities to other communities where they can see that, holy smokes, they can do it, we can do it.
The ICE network is a benefit of the Catalyst program. We're limited with our resources in our isolated communities, and so when you pool it together, that's where the value comes from. Because you have kind of people in each community that are wanting the same thing for their own communities. It seems like there's like 5 different questions that pop up every day where you don't even really know how you would go about answering those questions, and then the ICE network's there almost like a big brother.
There's an opportunity for clean energy to come in and help our people to be self-sufficient.
When I hit that ground with the rest of the 20 Catalysts, I felt part of a bigger picture. Once I got through the 3 weeks, it was intense, it was a lot. It was early morning, late evening, you know, learning about wind, solar, geothermal, energy efficiency.
What's really, truly enjoyable is to see these young people who really want to affect change, are working hard for their communities to accomplish the change that needs to happen in their community on climate change.
Okay, so this is going to be connected to the solar panels?
Yeah, in Gull First Nation, we're implementing a solar battery energy storage microgrid integrated with the diesel Hydro One remote microgrid to offset about 25%, 120,000 liters of diesel fuel a year.
Pretty awesome milestone today.
Milestone, yeah. First solar panel ever in the community. Indigenous communities are leading the way to implement renewable energy projects across Canada, and it's programs like the 2020 Catalyst that help us towards a post-carbon future.
We find that there's a lot of wastage in just development, and so we're just trying to repurpose that wood that is otherwise just pushed up and burned, and it's heating homes and buildings, and it's no longer just going up in the air, putting that energy to work.
In Gaspésie, territory of Quebec, it's quite windy here. We are the Saudi Arabia of wind in Canada. So the project's been in effect since December 1st, 2016. That was the official date that the switch was turned on and we started creating electricity. If you think about 2,000 megawatts in wind energy in the Gaspésie, that's a significant amount of money.
I was drawn to the Catalyst program because I firmly believe that clean energy is going to restore our local self-reliance. Our energy independence is a platform upon which we can build food sovereignty and economic development.
The Catalyst program was so world-changing.
I felt charged at the end of it. I felt like I had the fair share of information, but as well as groundwork. Now let's go see how to implement this into our communities. And in this program, I'm not learning from mainstream society, so to say, but First Nation mainstream society, Indigenous mainstream society. So what's happening on the grounds in other communities that are relevant to my community.
This is the E-House. It's arrived. What a beauty.
I would say to anyone interested in coming to this program that you will not lose out. You're going to gain something. You're going to gain more than you ever thought you'd gain, both in relationships and knowledge.
My favorite thing about being up here is the view. It's amazing, like you can see so far.
Amazing. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. That is just a small portion of our Catalyst talking about exactly what this program did for them. And so if you look here, you can see that we have catalysts from our programs from coast to coast to coast. And as you can see here, specifically focusing on BC, you can see about 7 in British Columbia, and we have 2 in our cohort currently that are also making changes and taking that initiative to learn about clean energy as well. The 2020 Catalyst program, just to let everyone know about it, just touch on it a bit more. We've had 102 catalysts to date in the program, with 37 of them being women, 40 of them being off-grid, 27 being youth, and 25 being from northern communities. So we're very proud to have a very dynamic program. And so if anyone's ever interested in it, feel free to take a look at our website. Additionally, though, I do want to touch on our ICE network. And so when we talk about the ICE network, I did put the link in the chat, but how we kind of describe it is it's kind of like a Facebook, but for clean energy. And so you go in, you create a profile, and from there, you are able to access resources on clean energy, make connections with people in the clean energy community, develop relationships. And in this past year, we reached over 1,200 members within our ICE network, and our ICE network also hosts collabs. And so we hosted 10 last year, all on bringing clean energy champions in to kind of educate, talk about the topics that there are, so that you can yourself go to them, learn, and also build connections with the people that also attend. So within that ICE network, there are people from 438 unique communities and cities. And so if you're looking for a place to start or people to start talking to, the ICE network is definitely a place for you to join. as you can see here. These are just some photos from our team. Definitely very inspiring to get to kind of see it in action as well. Another project that we have that was part of that medicine wheel of programming is our ice gathering. And so a fun fact about our ice gathering is that's exactly how I got involved with ice. And it was occurring in Ottawa this year. And in that year I attended, and from there, basically when you walk in, what we want the ice gathering to be is interactive, insightful, and innovative. And that's exactly what it is. You go and automatically you're being pushed to talk to as many people as you can. You're being pushed to learn as much as you can. You're being pushed to think outside of the box constantly. And that's what we do with our gathering. Our gathering is open to everybody in the ICE community. So if you do want to get involved, feel free to take a look. We hosted our first ever virtual one this year, where we had over 660 participants, 37 sessions, 55 plus speakers, and attendees from 15 different countries. And so we're hoping that it can be in person the next time we host it, but definitely keep looking at our social media for when we do plan on having it again. But basically what we bring here is a time for people to interact, talk about what's happening in the clean energy community. We bring in leaders in clean energy so that they can talk about what they did in their community and see how you can apply it within your own. And a big chunk of it is just making sure that we come together and stay energized every year as a community so that we can keep moving forward and know that we have support behind us. Looking next, we have projects like our ICE Global Hub and our Bringing It Home. Global Hub is it's an expression that the 476 million Indigenous people around the world can and should play a central role to catalyze a just and sustainable transition to a clean energy future. It's focused on Indigenous clean energy cooperation, and it's a driving force of UNDRIP to include Indigenous leadership and community clean energy enterprises. In 2020, we have taken it further with our Thai initiative as well. The Global Hub has recently launched a podcast called Decolonizing Power, another link that I did put in the chat. So if you're interested in listening to it, you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever. And we host different, again, clean energy leaders, give them a platform so that you can learn. And it's hosted by one of our staff members, Freddie Campbell, and also James Harper, who is a catalyst of ours. Another initiative that we have is Bringing It Home. And what Bringing It Home does is it's all about healthy energy living and making sure that that comes back to our communities so that we're living in a clean way, but also ensuring that our communities are respecting Mother Earth and everything around us. And we do that with our guide communities. So as you can see there on the map, Bringing It Home has the guide communities from across Canada that we work with in order to ensure that we can start this transition within our own homes and our own facilities in our communities. So if you're interested in that, I also did put the Energy Foundations report in the chat as well that you can take a look at. Next up is Generation Power. Like I said, this one wasn't a part of that medicine wheel programming that we showed you because it's actually our newest program that we've had. Generation Power it's like the Catalyst program, but it's specifically for Indigenous youth. And this is meant to bring a holistic and capacity-based program that acknowledges the skill, talents, and qualifications of youth and employers. So essentially what this program does is youth go into this training, they take land-based learning, they go through mentorship, and for the most part, they go into an internship as well, where they can learn and get themselves integrated into the clean energy sector and take that further or bring it back to their communities, however they so choose. This website is actually separate from ours at Generation Power. And so I also put that link in the chat if you're interested in looking and if you want to encourage youth in your own communities to apply in the future, or you want to talk about possibly being an employer for this program. And so moving forward, I'm going to shift it to Terry Lynn to kind of talk about our British Columbia catalysts and what they've been doing.
Awesome. So if we can just flip to the next slide, Aubrey-Ann, I'm happy to share just a bit of the profiles of some of the catalysts from since 2016. We had 5 cohorts now, so just over 102, like Aubrienne said. And one of the things that we really have come to appreciate about the 2020 Catalyst program is that while when it first started, getting applicants in through the door, it was a little bit challenging trying to promote this new clean energy training initiative that, is very different. It's intensive. It's 3 weeks on site learning from other Indigenous people who are leading in this space. And now we're at a point where we're oversubscribed. When we launch for applications for people to participate in 2020 Catalyst, we're exceeding over 100 applicants for only 20 spots. So, you'll see up here Mike Tilson, Stacy Golding, Vince Robinson, all the great work that they're doing in their communities. If we go on to the next slide, Aubrienne, Braden and Darren. So Darren from Haida Gwaii. He was also a chief over there. Curious if anybody in the audience, I know that there's 20 of you. I have 2 questions. One of them is, have you heard about Indigenous Clean Energy before this session with Candu? If you did, just tell us how, because we're always curious to know. And also, if you know any of the catalysts, give them a shout out, and we'll flip to the last slide of catalysts from BC, Leona Humchit and Michelle Myers. So I know all of the catalysts because I was a mentor myself with the project experience that I do have with the 150 megawatt wind farm. And it is so amazing that the feeling that I get when I get to see these faces on the screen, because they feel like they're my family. And that's one of the really amazing things that gets created through taking the 2020 Catalyst program. You really have time to bond and share, and really it's how us as Indigenous people, we see that that's how we're thriving, by forming those relationships. So, I'm so proud to know them and so happy that I get to see them at least once a year when they come together at the gathering with us. So we'll go over to the next slide, Aubrienne. All right, I don't have the PowerPoint in front of me, so I'm just gonna need you to keep directing. So when we look at where we're at in this country, Indigenous peoples own at least 197 medium to large scale renewable energy projects of over 1 megawatt. We are the largest clean energy asset owner aside from Crown and public utilities. That is very significant. In fact, Aubrienne and I are working on, a presentation to the federal government about the huge opportunity that is here when we're looking to solve issues that have to do with climate, that have to do with what's happening in terms of, across the country, and how do we get reconciliation and get power back into our people's hands. Well, I feel like, taking charge through clean energy opportunities is definitely a way there. And a lot of other Indigenous communities and people, including yourselves, feel the same way. So it's exciting. We can flip to the next slide. There's just numbers there. They're all available on the ICE network, just in terms of like a lay of the land. I always feel that it's so cool when I hear that we're this, the largest energy owner assets, and everything else doesn't really matter. Now, when we're talking about energy efficient and housing facilities, that is really the trend and the natural conversation that happened when we were working with the 2020 Catalyst, because that was our only program at ICE back in 2016 when it was first started. It was just that capacity building. And part of the conversations that we were learning from the communities that we were working with is that, well, what about the everyday person? What about us in our homes? Like, the cost of diesel for rural and remote communities, or energy in the colder climates, that sometimes we can't afford to heat our homes properly. So what are things that we can do to lower those costs of energy? And, aside from putting solar panels on community housing units, we can do things that can make the homes be built better, ventilated properly, and that reduce mold and all of these other health issues that exist, so that actually people feel a lot more safe and comfortable in their homes. And it makes the assets last longer. So there's a lot of value in that. And Leona Humchit and HealthSick is actually, or was working, or a part of some great work that they're doing, one of our guide communities with Bringing It Home, where they're going through the process of identifying how they can save, do retrofits, upgrade, infrastructure so that they're able to reduce the cost and increase the lifespan of their facilities. So that's really exciting. It does cost a lot of money, but we do know that there's huge economic drivers behind housing in communities where, that's one of the major employment opportunities. So, it's a push that we're working hard towards to present the value in that from the Indigenous perspective. So we'll go to the next slide. And just to give you an idea, like I said, it's a lot of work and a lot of money. So we're looking here somewhere, just south of $5.3 billion in terms of what the government would have to invest for this energy efficiency requirements. But that also represents the potential that's there for, opportunities. So we'll go to the next slide on that. And another thing that's coming that the trend is, like, if we're looking, because that's one of the things that we often get caught up in when we think about clean energy. Oftentimes we're thinking about the clean energy projects, so wind, solar, run of the river, or whatever the case is. But actually there's a whole spectrum of opportunities that exist. So just talking about energy efficiency and conservation, retrofitting being one of them. The other one is the big push that we're now seeing towards electrifying vehicles. So we want to be able to be a part of that transition and actually have these vehicles in our communities. One of the ideas that I've heard and that I think is just so amazing is, like, why wouldn't Indigenous communities across Canada own these charging stations? And, like, this could be a great opportunity for tourism, right? Like, what a better that great way to show reconciliation by, like, having these opportunities to share in your communities and benefit from the local economy. So I just think that's super excited, and I'm looking forward to the day that we have that highway in place, because I'll drive across the country for that. So the next slide, Aubrienne. And then there's the targeted renewables that are, how are we going to get off of diesel? So there's combinations and there's solutions that exist depending on the community and where they are. The trend is going towards replacing coal. So obviously, if they're going to do that, there has to be a replacement source of energy available. There's also opportunities with things in terms of hydrogen and like making that clean energy available. And then behind the meters that, from what I understand about it, because I am not a clean energy expert, I work with a lot of them though, but for behind the meters, what that is essentially is those large box stores like Costco's and Walmart's that are putting solar installations on top of their roofs and reducing their energy consumption. But that infrastructure can actually be owned by Indigenous communities. So always interesting to know, things that you would have never even thought about, but these are opportunities that are there and that we like to share. We can go to the next slide. I know that there's a couple of questions. That's just because I'm presenting and talking, so I'll answer your questions. Just keep them going in the chat. We'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. And then we're talking about, so how do we get there? How do we take advantage of all of the opportunities that exist? It can be extremely overwhelming. Energy isn't something that's easy. There's a lot of moving parts. You have to deal with the federal government, provincial, territorial. There's also energy regulators, utilities, developers. There's just so much going on, but there's ways forward. So one of the things that's really important is that having financing mechanisms so that we're able to go out and do the work. There are definitely examples of communities who have, with no money in their pocket, been able to maximize returns for their communities based on them having access to the resources in the lands. So those do exist. I know so because I did do a project for 150 megawatts that's valued at $380 million worth of capital investment, where we didn't have any money, but we ended up being 51% owners of it. And, we're going to see over $222 million coming into communities over the life of that project. So it's very significant. So financing mechanisms, the resource development, we need the capacity building, though that is so important. One of the things that I recognize really early on is that, clean energy and Indigenous communities, there's not a large amount of people that are in that space So it's really important that, you know, we kind of pull that together. And that's one of the great things about ICE, is that when there's success that's happening in other communities, that's what we get drawn to, and we invite them in, and you get to hear directly from the people, and we're sharing so that we don't have to recreate the wheel, and that we don't have to make the same mistakes, that actually we can get projects done faster by working together and by sharing that knowledge. And maybe we look at things differently, but you get that extra thing from somebody else. So that's really a wonderful thing. It also takes the policies. So it's all great to have a project and have, you know, the money, but if you don't have the policies in your province or with the utilities that enable that environment for Indigenous communities to really be out there and even provide opportunities to get them funded, that is really important in terms of having success. And then the mentoring and the networks, I linked it. I talked about that a little bit more with the capacity building. I just see them so connected and so important there. And that's another thing that we offer at ICE, is once people go through the 2020 Catalyst program or Generation Power, which is our newest program that we're launching specifically for youth, it does say on the website that the deadline closed on July 2nd. I would just mention that if there's anybody that's interested and qualified, I encourage you to still submit your application, because it's a new program, still actively doing some recruitment for that. But that mentoring, so once you finish these programs, we do mentor with the people that come out of it for up to 18 months afterwards, or whenever they want, whenever they have a question. Actually, there's a lot of times that Catalyst will just send in an email, and you know, we'll get the information that they need, or set up a call and just kind of coach them through, or go to their community and work with them. Maybe they're hosting community sessions or information sessions, and just being there to help them along the way so that they know that they're not alone. And that really is like priceless in terms of, you know, having that mentorship and that network there to support you. So we'll go to the next slide. Oh, is that the end of the presentation?
Yeah, I think we sped through it a little bit, but it's nice because then we can leave time for lots of questions and clarifications on what we do. And another thing is that if we don't get to everything today, of course, like I said, our ICE network, it has tons of resources that you can utilize, as well as our YouTube channel has all of our gathering sessions posted on there. So if you want, you could definitely go through and watch the gathering as if you were at it. And we have people talking about everything. Even Leona, who is one of our BC Catalysts, hosted a session. But yeah, we can go into questions. Michelle, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, so Cindy has, if you look in the chat box, Cindy has a couple of questions. So what about the repairs that have been covered somewhat to the RRAP program? She asked, what is hydrogen? And then we are starting a subdivision in a couple of years. And because we have a housing list, we are looking to infill housing in backyards and on reserve housing loan program.
Okay, so in terms of repairs that were done or that could be done with the RAP program, I'm not familiar with the guidelines anymore. I actually did work in housing 20 years ago in my community, so very familiar with that at CMHC. But this is the thing, so like CMHC is on our list of people that we need to go and talk to, because having those policies or programs in place, maybe it's not going to be RAP, but maybe there'll be a specific program that CMHC could develop and work with Indigenous communities to do those retrofits and upgrades to their existing housing programs. But that conversation has to happen, and that's part of the work that we do here at ICE. So not only working with Indigenous communities and people, but we also work with the government and, you know, utilities, and we push for policies and programs that will support the work that we're doing here, so building all of this capacity. And then in terms of the new housing subdivision that you're going to build, and the shortage of land, that's always the case. There's some neat ideas that you can consider too. Like, I know that there's some community programs, like one that I'm familiar with is in the province of New Brunswick, but they're actually looking at building smart communities where the energy in that community is coming from a renewable source. So let's say solar, for example, or depending on where you are, it could be something different. But that new division would actually be 100% powered off of that. So there's some neat things that you can do, and I would encourage you to do so and look outside of the box. And like Aubrianne had said, we have our website and we have the Bringing It Home initiative that's really focused on energy efficiency and housing, but also on the ICE network, and that links in the chat as well. If you go on there, there's a lot of information about housing itself and energy efficiency in Indigenous communities. So you can go and have a look and see if there's stuff there that'll be useful to you.
Thank you. I just see that this is just such an excellent resource. I love that you also offer some of the stories from previous participants and communities. So thanks for that. Are there any more questions or comments? We have plenty of time. So feel free to unmute yourself, use that chat box. We welcome your voice to this conversation. So Cindy does say we did have a hydro look at water energy. We do not have enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you're looking for the right resource, like something could work for your cousin in a different community down the road, but in your community it may just not be the same. And that's why you have to know what your resources are. And often a really good point for that is your elders, because nobody knows the land better than them. And like they'll be able to say like that's a really good place for whatever it is. And that's also important to know too, right? Like if you're going to do development, you want to make sure that you're talking with the users of the land, so that you're not going into areas that may be sacred or have medicinal plants or other meanings behind it.
Really great. There's another question here. What would you recommend as a starting point resource for communities with limited capacity?
All right. Well, what I would recommend is that you go to the ICE network. Every month, we host monthly webinars on clean energy topics with experts. There'll be a panel of people that are coming in, some from the industry, some from other communities and whatnot. There's always an Indigenous host on it. And we talk about specific topics. So the community that you're talking about, they may have an interest in solar, or they may have an interest in bioenergy. Well, you can go on the ICE network, or you may not even know what it's about, and they may just want to learn like, hey, what are all these different sources of energy that exist that are clean energy? Let's take a look at it. The ICE network, it's free. Anybody can join it, and all of that information is there. If you have questions, you put it in. That's where you're going to get the feedback from the catalyst, the executive director of the organization. And people are so happy to help. I would definitely say go there. And then the programs that we offer, like the 2020 Catalyst program, Generation Power, there's no cost to participate. So if your community is looking to take the steps to make this transition, then I would recommend that you look at your community and say, who are the people that we're going to want in these positions, and then get them into the training programs, because they're going to learn so much from that.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Terry Lynn said, I just got into clean energy about a year ago. And for me, it's all about utilizing all the resources that you have around you. So while ICE may not have it, and maybe we're not accepting program applicants for the Catalyst program at exactly when you're looking for it, we're consistently sharing resources that you can utilize in that process. And like I put in the chat, we have our 2 reports, like our Accelerating Transition and our Energy Foundations, as well as our executive director wrote a book called Aboriginal Power, and all of those are accessible through our website. And so just utilizing what's already there and is free for you to utilize it's a really big help, and it can take you just that little step to kind of learn the basics, and then from there you can really build depending on where you're the most interested in.
Sorry, I was trying to respond to Cindy. I sent it to her directly, but I was saying when she was talking about in the chat there, wait, sorry, I'm on my phone. I'm not used to looking at this. No, she had a question about thermal energy and not knowing where to begin. And so I had told her that she should go to the ICE network and look up geothermal. So that's the energy that's under the ground. So like for example, this is really good in remote areas. It actually can be done anywhere, but like our project, the wind farm that we built, 150 megawatts, it's 36 kilometers in the woods. And we have a big operations building there with, you know, a conference room and stuff like that. We have the technicians that work out of there. So that building needed to have a source of heat. And one of the things that they did was they used the geothermal. So they dug down into the ground, and I don't know much about that myself either. But like I said, I'm not an expert, but I know a lot of them and I know where you can find the information. But geothermal essentially is the heat that comes from way down in the ground, and it comes up, and they are able to harness it and circulate that in the buildings. So, and that is a form of clean energy as well. And
yeah, she did have another comment as well.
Yeah. So yeah, those specific questions, Cindy, like those are questions that we would be able to talk about more in terms of like a mentorship. So there is ICE mentorship, a section on our website, and I really think like, or you can go on the website and get, or Aubrey Ann can send you the email address just because I'm on my phone. But if you want to have another conversation, just to get some ideas and have a conversation with us, like feel free to set up a time and we can flesh out a lot with you, and we'd be happy to do so.
It's great. Cindy, I love your curiosity, your questions, your pursuits for better for your community. So that's awesome. I think this is going to be a really excellent resource for you. So really tap into it, ask those questions, keep them coming. Anybody else have any questions before we close here, or any comments that you want to bring to this topic?
I have one. If I could ask one favor from, you know, there's 17 new people in here. Only one has heard about ICE before. So really thank you guys for coming. We're really trying to promote the work and the programs that we're doing. So, you know, if you have time, you know, like us on Facebook or on one of our social medias. It's Indigenous Clean Energy. We're on all of the platforms, and share just that you've learned, and, you know, maybe with, you know, your cousins or your friends or whatever, that this program's there, this organization is here. We're based in Ottawa, but we have people working from across the country now. So we're really, really thankful that you took time to join us and to hear our presentation today. So Walalin.
Rochelle, do you have any comments, questions?
Yes, sorry, there's a dog barking in the background. So I had my mute on. I actually work for a federal department, and we do research on geothermal. And I'm just wondering, what kind of partnerships do you have with different programs that could provide funding for this type of initiative?
So right now, our main partnerships that we have with the federal government are with NRCan.
That's where we're, yeah, okay.
Okay. So under the CERC and the IODI program streams there, and we're also administering STIP for our generation power. So I think that's, in terms of the research, again, that's part of the conversation that we are going to start having a little bit more in depth with the federal government over the next few weeks, because there is like that research that's required, and even just studying about, like, you know, Indigenous participation in clean energy across the country. We're doing it now at our organization, but we would like the feds to do a part of it as well. So, but yeah, NRCan with IODI and CERC.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious because I know, like, I'm not part of the energy sector at NRCan, but we do some research on geothermal potential, and we also have capacity building programs. So that's why I assisted this webinar. It caught my attention when I saw the email from CanDo, and so I'm definitely going to check out your website and see if there's any potential connections.
For sure.
That we're doing. It's mostly north of 60, so interested in maybe partnering with Inuit groups on alternative energy. So just curious about potential partnerships.
No, for sure. And like for myself, I do work north of 60 on a project in northern Quebec, and with Inukshuat, and that would be something that may be of interest to other communities. There's no doubt about it. Just knowing what the climate is, you know, in that area, I think that, you know, solutions, we need to look more into solutions. And if there's an opportunity to have research and, you know, capacity building, then that would be great. So Aubrey Ann did drop my email in there. So if you do have anything and you want to follow up, then feel free.
Perfect. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. I feel like this potentially could be an ongoing dialogue and conversation. So keep those questions coming. You have their information. Don't be shy. Be on those emails. Get those questions out there and start that conversation, the dialogue. Really important information. So thank you so much for sharing what you do with ICE. Thank you for inspiring us. You know, when you both were talking, you could feel, you could hear, you could just take in that passion you have for this. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So as we go on with the rest of our day, may we be mindful, may we be kind to ourselves, our own spirit, kind to those around us, kind to Mother Earth and this land, and maybe walk gently with ourselves, with one another, and with the land. So have a good rest of the afternoon, everyone. Peace.
Thank you.